Hey all, it's Michael Laxer, editor of The Left Chapter, coming to you from Toronto on March 28th. Today is the last day of voting in the complete sham of what is the New Democratic Party leadership race in Canada. For those who don't know what the New Democratic Party is, Canada's NDP is the equivalent of the UK Labour Party here with the notable difference that it has never held power federally in Canada, although it has propped up Liberal governments a couple of times over the years in minority parliaments. It has, however, held power in several Canadian provinces in the last 50 years. And like most social democratic and labor parties in the West, over the last 25 years especially, the New Democratic Party has drifted significantly to the right, while also becoming increasingly internally undemocratic. These are things that over the years I've chronicled many times, first when I was writing on Rabble, and then later when the Left Chapter was first launched as a sort of more Canada-focused blog spot, and then a few times afterwards when the Left Chapter became a more internationally focused website. You can still see the articles, of course, that I wrote on all of those platforms, including recent ones, such as one that I wrote for the 50th anniversary of the Waffle, which was a left movement within the NDP that came close to winning, well, relatively close to winning the leadership in the early 1970s, and that was ultimately expelled and forced to disband. So you can look up that article, which also argues why I think it's completely futile for leftists to work within the NDP. A point that I think has been completely and thoroughly proven yet again over the course of what I have already described as a complete sham, an undemocratic, anti-democratic farce of a leadership campaign. So at any rate, the NDP, to say that this NDP leadership race has been completely rigged is just transparently obvious. It's a fact. There were two left-wing candidates, Eve and Bianca, who were, put themselves forward, who were going to run on avowedly anti-imperialist and anti-capitalist platforms. Eve Engler, who got in early and was disqualified. His campaign put together a remarkable platform, a very thorough anti-capitalist platform called Capitalism Can't Be Fixed, Onward to a Socialist Future, which you can easily find online. Just Google the title or look up Eve Engler. And then his campaign was disqualified, and then his partner Bianca's campaign was disqualified on remarkably sexist and ultimately racist grounds, claiming that it was simply a proxy campaign, as if she, a very accomplished woman, was, not able to run on her own merits on this left-wing platform. An absurd allegation to make. So, after disqualifying him on specious grounds, they disqualified her on outrageous grounds, frankly. And this would be completely predictable and kind of banal and boring and not really worth talking about if the race only involved the two of the three frontrunners, one being Rob Ashton and the other being Heather McPherson, both of whom are right-wing social democrats. McPherson is, has over the years disgracefully embraced Western imperialist propaganda policies. This is very easy to demonstrate. I'm not going to bother here. You can just look up the record. It speaks for itself, and not in a good way if you're on the left, foreign policy-wise. But the only thing that makes it interesting to talk about this is the presumptive heir apparent, General Strike, Avi Lewis, who, based on certain indicators, including fundraising and some other online indicators, appears to quite likely be headed to a very significant and probably pretty easy first ballot victory tomorrow in the leadership race once all the votes are counted and everything is said and done. The reason that the disqualification of these two left-wing candidates and the way that this campaign was rigged takes on an especially important significance given the likelihood of Avi Lewis's victory is that Lewis and his online proxies and his campaign have presented themselves as a sort of left-wing force for left renewal within the NDP, and also for democratic renewal within the NDP. And given that they are likely cruising to a coronation against the backdrop of the disqualification of these two candidates and also the recently announced banning of the Barry Wise letter, who heads the NDP's Socialist Caucus, from attending the convention by the the party's great enforcer, Lucy Watson. Given that they're claiming that they're this big force for democratic renewal against this backdrop, it just makes the thing even more absurd than it was to begin with. It's impossible to take seriously a campaign that claims that that's one of its focuses, but that has willingly participated in this complete and utter fraud, has done nothing to seriously push back against it. I mean, if Avi Lewis had really rallied and said that this was an utter sham without these other people being allowed to participate, and that he would withdraw his candidacy if they weren't allowed to continue to run or to run. There's, in my mind, there's very little doubt that the party leadership probably would have backed down. But I mean, there are a variety of leftists, alleged leftists, and folks centered around the official organ of the Lewis campaign, the online publication, The Breach, who, they sort of present themselves as being in favor of this great democratic renewal, but who online as proxies and in various other forums did everything they could to undermine Engler's credibility in the beginning, when it was only Engler running on the left for the NDP leadership, and who did very little of any significance to push back against his exclusion and the eventual exclusion of Bianca. Their behavior online was bullying and aggressive. This is very easy to demonstrate. It was Janus two-faced, remarkable duplicity went on there. And, you're supposed to then believe that this is a candidate and that these are, the forces behind this candidate are committed to a more transparent, democratic, and open new Democratic Party, and which on its face is simply absurd. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, it's ridiculous, given the context and given what's unfolded over the last few weeks. But there are so many things that one can say about this entire process, and there are so many things that one can say about the NDP. But I think it's worth noting that going into this convention in Manitoba and in Winnipeg, where there is without any question, the most right-wing New Democratic Party provincial government in the country's history, under the leadership of Wab Kinew, the provincial premier, who they are all paying homage to as if he is, some tremendous, wonderful political figure in Canada. I mean, which he's not at all. I mean, Kinew has backed sort of a horrible law and order policy mandate. They haven't been anything but left wing in their approach to the budget and to increasing social programs and expanding the rights of workers and etc. And they have, Wab Kinew in 2024 was going on about how the federal NDP and the federal government, more particularly, the federal Liberal government wasn't doing enough to increase military spending rapidly enough federally. An absolutely disgraceful position that he took at the time under a sleepy Joe Biden as the now fascist head of state down there, Donald Trump used to call him. And of course, now that Trump's in power, many of these social democrats are sort of trying to frame themselves as anti-Trump, but none of them are actually against the NATO militarist agenda that's ongoing in Canada or the increase of military spending in Canada. And notably, none of the NDP leadership candidates, including General Strike Lewis, are in favor of leaving NATO. None of them have called for Canada to exit NATO, a fact that I brought up in another video as to why it's essential for leftists and anti-imperialists to want Canada and any other country that you live in to leave NATO. And it, completely discredits their attempts to frame themselves as being against the worst U.S. and Western excesses, when all of these excesses are tied to the existence of NATO. But at any rate, so this is happening in Manitoba, where they all have to pay homage to this right-wing social democratic leader, a contradiction that my friend and a comrade, Gabriel Haythornwaite, brought up in the article that I referenced in another video already, which is called, on the left chapter, which is called "NDP Chickens Come Home to Roost on the Carney Farm," and he talks about the complete farce of the backdrop and left posturing by the federal party and of the Lewis campaign against this backdrop of the BC and Manitoba NDP premiers, Wab Kinew, who we've already mentioned, and David Eby, because they're not only are they behind what he calls Carney's Orwellian national agenda of mega war spending and the state-sanctioned surge of corporate resource plundering. He notes that in BC, despite constant political support from both Union and First Nation leaderships, the provincial government has seen fit to launch a frontal attack against the public sector, with first 15,000 terminations planned for starters, and is currently pruning the 2019 Declarations Act's commitments to Indigenous consultation rights in corporate extraction projects. And he notes that Lewis's defensive response to accusations that his perceived criticisms undermine provincial NDP governments is telling, because he has declared his passionate support for the party's provincial sections and has downplayed political differences with NDP premiers, claiming, for example, that there is a shared perspective against the increasing concentration of wealth at the top of the economic pyramid. But as Haythornwaite notes, try telling that to Premier Eby, who in October 2024, in a BC election debate, chided the BC Green leader for what he suggested were discriminatory tax the rich proposals. The contradictions here are self-evident, and you see Lewis already sort of backing down in advance. There are many other reasons not to take the notion that a Lewis victory would signal a shift to of any meaningful significance to the left in the NDP. We could go on and on about those. The very fact, simply contrasting his campaign platform with the campaign platform that Engler and Engler's campaign formulated, that contrast is not terribly favorable to the Lewis campaign. I think going in, Lewis and his backers did not anticipate such a strong challenge from further to the left. They probably thought that they would be staking out the leftist ground and leftist terrain in the NDP debate, and this helps to explain their reaction to the Angler campaign, which was, appalling. Um, and which puts the lie to their other pretensions, frankly. Uh, but I think what's really important to get at here, in addition to the points that were raised in Gabe's article and in articles that I've written over the years and that other people have, in addition to those, and along with those, it's really important to understand that no matter what you try to do within the New Democratic Party, it always ends the same way. And it always ends with the same people behind the scenes and holding power within the structure in question. And there's no real reason to believe that a sort of nepotism case from Canada's first family of social democracy, there's no reason to believe that anything's going to seriously change with their leadership, especially given the way the campaign has behaved and given the complete farcical sham that they have participated in to ultimately get coronated, which is what I believe will happen. If it doesn't happen, in the unlikely event that McPherson, most likely, were to pull some kind of upset, presumably a second ballot upset, sneaking up the middle somehow, that won't make it any less of a sham. By definition, the entire process was completely rigged. So, I think that knowing that and knowing what that implies, I think you can take from that everything you need to know about what we're likely to see over the coming years under Avi Lewis, should he win, or under any one of the other leaders, should they win, under any of the other candidates, should they win. Gabe, my friend Gabe, framed what Avi Lewis is doing as participating in a kind of progressive pantomime. I don't really think that there is a better way to phrase it. And, frankly, the continued idea that leftists should participate in the NDP when the NDP does nothing but tell leftists to, literally fuck off every single opportunity they get. The idea that we should continue to clamor to be part of a club that not only doesn't want us, but does everything it can to prevent us from having membership or participating. I think that notion is clearly wrong-headed. The attempt to turn the NDP to the left has done nothing but fail. Even if Avi Lewis wins, I am 100% certain that those of us who say that will do nothing to fundamentally shift the NDP will be completely vindicated. It may take a year or two for the honeymoon to end and for the obvious to assert itself, but it will happen. And if ever there was a clearer case after this disgracefully rigged process that leftists need to overcome their differences and to work outside of the horrible albatross and drain that is the New Democratic Party, to create some new kind of left front within Canada, both electorally and as a broader movement, to actually present a genuine alternative to capitalism and to Western imperialism in the country politically. It is very clear that now is the time. It is long, long overdue, and we need to be moving to do this, no matter who wins the NDP leadership race, including if that victory goes to Avi Lewis. Anyway, love and solidarity, friends and comrades. Hope you're all having a good weekend. Hope everything is okay wherever you may be in the world, and look forward to talking to you again in the near future.